dear speakers, I would like to continue in English. I hope you all hear me and understand me. I have honor and privilege to announce my next speakers in connectivity issues in Southeast Europe. First, I would like to announce Mr. Dmitry Pankin, President of the Board of Directors, Black Sea Trade and Development Bank. Then Franco Nicola Cupolo, CEO Thessaloniki Port Authority, and Mr. Simon Ellis, Program Leader for the Western Balkans within World Bank. If we all agree, I would like first to allow Mr. Dmitry Pankin to open a discussion on the connectivity issues in Southeast Europe subject. So, Mr. Pankin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your invitation. And again, Belgrade Economic Forum, this is a traditional place for discuss kind of connectivity issue, infrastructure issue in Balkans country. For us, we are a regional financial institution, and of course, as an international financial institution, they like infrastructure, and regional institution especially like kind of connectivity between regional countries. So again, this is our topic. But again, now we are in the middle of pandemic, in the middle of this health crisis. So again, there is some bad news as usual and good news. Let's start with bad news. Bad news, of course, there is no, all major problem of all our country is to support medium-sized small business, to support restaurant, hotel. We have huge crisis in restaurant, hotels activity in Greece, in Bulgaria. So that's why, again, our focus is not in infrastructure, but focus of our country is in like this, first of all, health question, and then support of small and medium-sized company. This is true. Of course, in that case, we have huge budget deficit this year in all European Union country. Forget about Maastricht criteria, about 3% GDP deficit, so it will be around 10% GDP deficit, huge growth of government debt in all European Union member country. That's why in that condition, it will be very difficult to expect additional money for infrastructure project. And again, if we are talking about road, airport, what kind of discussion could be if we are living in lockdown, aircraft is not flying. In Greece, at least, there is forbidden to go from one city to another city, lockdown. That's why this is kind of bad news for infrastructure and for discussion on connectivity project. But again, what kind of good news? Good news, of course, there is new environment and new requirement for infrastructure, especially we are talking about digital infrastructure, as now we are on digital connection. And again, there is a lot of interesting project in digital connectivity. This is the first. Second, I think, question about, again, government has no money to finance infrastructure project. But now, if we see what kind of efforts is done by European Central Bank, by Federal Reserve System, in order to print, in order to push monetary supply, and we have, I don't remember time in our history when for many years we have negative interest rate, when even Greece 10 years borrowing less than 1% interest rate. This 1 year borrowing is negative interest rate in Greece. That's why, what does it mean? It's the right time for private sector to invest in infrastructure project with such interest rate. It will be not, let's say, not very expensive, because one story is invest when interest rate is like 5%, and to attract borrowing and attract external money and to repay this huge interest rate. And totally different story when we have interest rate at around 0.1%. So this is the right time for private sector to went to infrastructure project and to participate in private-public sector initiatives.
I have one question to
Yeah,
ask.
sure.
You have a huge experience in the investment industry. How is it possible for the developer to gain access to the funds if if one doesn't have a very good credit rate? How can he access the funds during the pandemic crisis in this region, since if he has no good credit history, or greenfield startup projects? Because my understanding is that there is enormous amount of money waiting to be organized in the world, but there is very small number of companies that credit history allows them to apply for. So do you have any suggestions for the young businesses, for the greenfield investments, for the startups? How can they gain access to the good, cheap funds? Thank you.
You see, there is maybe two parts of question. First part of question, what will they access for SMEs company who has no good history, no, let's say, track record, no good rating? In that case, this kind of necessary to launch program of government guarantee. For example, here we have Hellenic Development Bank in Greece, and the Hellenic Development Bank provide such a guarantee support for SMEs. The same story in Bulgaria. Bulgarian Development Bank providing huge line of this kind of guarantee support, and it works. This is the one part of the story. If we are talking about more medium-sized company, more like municipality, authority, regional authority, I see big problem that they have lack of money to prepare good feasibility study. So question is to spend first money on feasibility study, on like legal due diligence, on environmental issue, and exactly in that case, I see now role of international financial institution, because we have some capacity, we have some technical assistance fund, we have experience to work on all this issue, and in that case, our role will be, again, not to start provide loan for medium-sized company or like for municipality, but first to help this entity to prepare project and to make this project bankable. Because if it's project bankable, if risk is understandable, it is much easier now to attract private money for this project.
So I suppose if we introduce into our discussion Mr. Ellis, that together we can find some solution for the easier access. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Ellis?
Yes. I mean, I think in terms of the World Bank, most of our loans are backed by a sovereign guarantee. So, you know, we're lending at the government level. But having said that, we do have projects that support SMEs. So there is grant or concessional finance available to SMEs. And as Dmitry was saying, we also support municipalities, where you know, some of these funds can be granted. Basically, you know, the government will take out the loan, but the funds can be sent down as a grant to the municipal level. And I think, just to reiterate one of the points again that Dmitry was making, is that one of the key things in this is getting good projects. My sense is actually there's a lot of money around, but what we lack is actually good projects. And so if we have resources to do feasibility studies, to do design, to do all of this sort of thing, then I think the funds can be made available even for people with poor credit history.
I would like to interrupt you just for a second. This is true. We have access to large funds, But the problem is that in the developing countries and countries that came out of the Eastern Bloc or ex-socialist countries, there is not many experts who are good in writing the projects. How can this be overcome in the future?
If you're asking me, I mean, one of the real shame about all of this is you have many good experts, but just a lot of them aren't still in Serbia. That's the problem. You know, they're with international
or in the region.
Or in the region. You know, they're with international consulting companies around the world. But when you look at some of the big growth markets for Serbia and for the region, it's in professional services. And I think this is an area where really much more can be done to train people, to retain people, and to really grow what we can do on professional services. And I think a lot of this also means that, you know, us as infrastructure financiers, we need to demand that a lot of this technical work is done in country and in the region. And also the governments themselves need to invest more in the soft side of things, you know, in feasibility study and design in order to get good projects. But, you know, how we retain labor within the region, that's a bigger story. But you know, it's a big market, and I think there's much that the region can benefit from it.
Thank you. Mr. Cupolo, how do you use both kinds of funds? How do you use, can you use in your business in the within your port? Can you use funds from the Black Sea Trade and Development Bank or from the World Bank, or you are completely focused on the private sector?
As you probably know, but I would like to reiterate that the Thessaloniki Port Authority since 2018 is privatized and belongs for the 67% to the international pool of entrepreneurs, whilst the Hellenic government keep a minority share, controlling share, and the rest is left to floating market. So in a way, we have already assessing the market of the facility, financial facilities. On the other hand, we took also the commitment to invest more than 260 millions in the next 5 years, thanks to the business plan approved by the board of directors and by the shareholder that will see Thessaloniki as a gateway for the Balkans and beyond, into the Central Europe, to be resurrected in this important role. Because, and then of course, coming back to your questions, we are openly interested in evaluating all possible sources of financing. Well, knowing that this is a commitment that comes from our private investors, that they are willing to invest, and we will evaluate openly all the possible sources of financing.
That's very interesting. My role as moderator on this panel is to say a couple of things regarding the regional development. First of all, I would like to underline that there was an initiative 2019 to make so-called small Schengen between Western Balkan countries. So the countries that are not still member of the European community can benefit from connectivity because the connectivity issues were really horrible during the past decades, since if one would travel from, let's say, Germany to Turkey, he would pass 7 different borders within a couple of hours. The goods and the capital and people were having big problems logistically just to travel from very close and very connected places in the past. So after the Little Schengen initiative, which were signed by Republic of Serbia, Republic of Albania, and the Republic of Northern Macedonia, and bilateral agreements between Republic of Serbia and Republic of Turkey and Bosnia and Herzegovina. I think we made some progress within the Berlin process to connect people, goods, and services a little bit closer within the region. How can we all do you think that the focus should remain on the infrastructural projects? Should Danube, Rhine-Main, Danube, Black Sea, North Sea connectivity, or the highways from Thessaloniki to, let's say, via Belgrade through Sarajevo, Podgorica, and then further on, or on the as our minister said, on the train facilities. Is this the focus in the next period, or you have any other ideas where we should invest in? Question for all.
Yeah, if I may, I volunteer to be the first.
Please.
So from a connectivity point of view, it's clear that the most sensible, the most reliable and environmentally sustainable way of transportation in order to connect territories, countries, and to extend the hinterlands is from Southern Europe into so from the Balkans into the Balkans and towards the Central Europe. Why? Because the majority of the cargo moves from the southern hemisphere, connects to the southern hemisphere from the north hemisphere, and vice versa. So as a Mediterranean, as the word says itself, we are in the middle. So by intercepting this huge flow of cargo, which serves millions, 100 millions of consumers, of inhabitants into Balkans, into Central Europe, it is logical. It is clear from a financial as well as from a logistics and from an environmental point of view that the best way of serving these customers is by serving from the south of the Europe, thence from the Balkans. And what is the most logical, the most sustainable way of supporting this population, this huge demand, is definitely the railway sector. The railway is the center and is pivotal for all the investments in the future which the European community will be focusing on. Along the pan-European corridors, it will be developing the whole future of the economical sustainability of our countries. So yes, railway is definitely the solution from south to north rather than from north to south, because clearly, if the cargo is coming from the southern hemisphere, being Far East or Middle East, and transiting the Mediterranean to then go to Northern Europe, then connect down through the rail, through the tracks, or through river flows, it is an extended transit time for the cargo. It is time and cost consuming, and is of course environmentally not sustainable because it's increase the consumption of CO2. For this reason, we believe that the plans put in place by the European community to invest on the pan-European corridor, to use the pan-European corridor as the major line of connectivity into and out Europe, represent the best solution from an environmental, from an economical, as well as from a strategic point of view for the whole economy of the Balkans and Europe. Because by reducing the transit time, by developing more efficient way of transportations, and even more cheaper way of transportation, can only benefit those countries and those populations living within those boundaries, and ultimately the economic development of those areas. Because the gateways, as well as the connectivity, as well as the infrastructure, are crucial in deciding about the competitiveness of our goods, both in exports as well as in imports. So this is going to be an important strategic element for the future development.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ellis, what is your opinion on the subject?
Well, I agree with much of what's been said, that you know, we need to invest in infrastructure, and clearly there is a need to shift cargo and people from roads onto rail and water. And if you look at the moment, over 90% of everything is going by road. And if you look at the problems that you were explaining, we calculate that every year trucks wait at borders in the region for about 3,000 years. The collective amount of time that they all spend waiting is 3,000 years. So we have to do a lot in terms of improving that connectivity. Much has been done. The mini Schengen, as you talk about, also the green lanes that have been introduced through the COVID pandemic, that all helps. But I also feel that we need to do a lot on the soft side, you know, on the reform. Because at the end of the day, in Serbia, for example, the railways were carrying much greater proportion of the traffic 20 years ago than they are today. And, you know, part of that is infrastructure. You know, train speeds are slow, but a lot of it is also the market. You know, are they actually attracting cargo? Are they attracting people onto the railways? So we have to think about that. The whole issue of green is something that is going to become increasingly, as already been mentioned. We have to really think about how we can green the connectivity. And that also suggests that we have to move towards rail, we have to move towards water-based modes, and we need to find alternative fuels for the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pankin. How do you see, since I'm addressing you from Serbia, I have to ask, Black Sea Trade and Development Bank, does it have a representative office in Belgrade? How can we access your services from here?
You see, thank you, Ervin. Unfortunately, I think Serbia, this is the only one country in this environment, is not a member of our bank. That's why for us, there is some problem to work in Serbia. And for example, we are looking some potentially interesting project like South Stream gas pipeline from South Stream to Serbia. Some railways, potentially interesting projects, some, for example, participation. We had some requests from Turkish company that this company was interested in participating in a road project in Serbia. But in that case, we cannot work in Serbia because Serbia is not a member of Black Sea Trade and Development Bank. This is, unfortunately, this is reality. But again, continue previous discussion. It was very interesting to hear opinion of my colleagues. But as an economist, I think first, before spending money and creating railways, of course, that is important. But first, to see is it possible to resolve problem without spending a lot of money? And my feeling that it's possible, and it is not physical lack of road. It's not if I see a kilometer of track at the border between Turkey and Bulgaria, and again, if I am going, and one time I went from Belgrade to Sarajevo, it was again huge, many kilometers track in the border between Serbia and Bosnia. Reason is not a lack of physical road or bridges too small. Problem is again some problem this kind of documentation and agreement between border. Sometimes this is a political games. So first of all, I think it's necessary to resolve this type of problem, and it's possible to spend much less money and to have much more effect if it will be possible resolve this type of cross-border administrative and political problems.
But your experience as a deputy of the Russian Minister of Finance, and you have very interesting experience in the Russian government. How did you connect to the regions that were problematic due to history issues?
You mean this kind of a problem that different region has different history background, some political tension between different region? You mean this area? You see, again, now we have in our bank, we have such country like Russia and Ukraine, for example. We have Armenia and Azerbaijan in our country. And again, this is reality. We are living with this political tension 100 years in our environment. And again, our proposal and what we are just now trying to find, maybe a small project, not create one big project like it was discussion motorway around all Black Sea. Okay, very nice, very good project in the maybe sometimes in the future, but take reality. Now this type of project that will link with one motorway, Bulgaria, Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, Greece, it's I don't think that it will be realistic. It's necessary to start with small project and to start kind of common work with a country with totally different political situation, totally different historical approach. And only one way in our case to survive is to start maybe to discuss, to understand a small real economic project and to have some kind of small step of economic success.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ellis, World Bank has many programs and are trying to make a legal framework more accessible to the business in Serbia, especially, I suppose, in the region also. What are your key projects for the upcoming period, especially due to this Corona situation?
Well, we have a number of projects that we've got in the pipeline, some of which were in the pipeline before coronavirus. Some of them have changed with coronavirus. So one of the elements that we're doing across the region and in fact across the world are emergency health projects, basically providing ventilators, emergency equipment, improving exactly. And then we're also now looking at how we can support with vaccines and delivering vaccines once they become available, so that everybody has an equal opportunity to benefit from that. So that's on the health side. On the more infrastructure connectivity side, what we see is that there is a need for a quick recovery. A lot of countries, a lot of companies, a lot of municipalities have really suffered from this coronavirus. They've seen revenues plummet, and they really need to recover. So one of the things we're looking at, for example, in Serbia, is a local infrastructure project where we're looking to work with municipalities to improve connectivity, to improve waste management, and quickly get projects on the ground. We've got a railway project coming up, which is supporting some of the soft elements of, there's some infrastructure, but a lot of what we're doing is focusing on, strengthening the institution itself. And of course, we have a project on, trade and transport facilitation, which addresses some of these issues of improving border crossings. And as is said, a lot of that is not physical. It's purely regulatory, legal, political. And so we help try and set up a platform of regional partners to address those. So those are just a few examples.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cupolo, what do you think the one should choose Piraeus port comparing to, let's say, I don't know, Trieste, Kopar, Zadar, Split, or Bar? Why do you see that Piraeus port should be gateway for the Western Balkans?
Well, Mr. Pasanovic, let me clarify that I'm here representing Thessaloniki Port Authority in Thessaloniki. So there's nothing to do with Piraeus. Although I think, allow me to say that I don't think, no problem. I don't think that is, let me emphasize that this is not particularly, I released this statement not because I think we are competitive, we are in competition with the Piraeus. I think we can play a complementary role because the amount of cargo, the amount of volumes we are talking about in order to deliver this important strategic role as a gateway for the Balkans and for the Central Europe cannot only be fulfilled by Thessaloniki itself. It needs a system of ports, primarily Greek ports. So we're looking also at interestingly with privatization of other Greek ports. We don't think we are competing against Piraeus simply because we deliver a completely different footprint in terms of supply chain and logistics. We are an independent player in the market of the gateway ports and logistics railway. As a matter of fact, by this week, we have already announced the establishment and incorporation of the Thessaloniki Port Authority, Bulgaria, which is our first international footprint into this market. And the first trains to connect Sofia will be leaving from Thessaloniki and coming back to Thessaloniki with exports within the month of November. So we are independent, as mentioned. We don't belong to any large shipping conglomerate like it is in Piraeus with COSCO. And we believe that the real point of gateway for this cargo, for this market is Thessaloniki rather than any other port, because we are independent and we can offer multiple choice to the customers willing to ship the cargo. So the competition really is not between us and Piraeus or Rijeka and Trieste. I think within the Mediterranean, we can all play a complementary role and sustain each other in this important, huge quest in shifting the supply chain from traditionally being serving those markets, including Balkans, from Northern European port range to the Southern European port of range, because it shortened the transit time for the goods by at least 10 days rather than 12 days, because it reduces the cost of transportation, because it reduces the emission in CO2, by simply following the European strategy to connect through the pan-European corridor by railway these markets. This is undoubtedly a huge benefit for the economies of those countries. So in this important role in claiming back part of the supply chain of the volumes that are now being served through the North European range of ports, which, allow me to say and emphasize, they are more and more congested. They are gonna more and more representing an issue for the efficiency of the supply chain, because as some of our esteemed colleagues in this panel has clearly also emphasized the complicacies, the bureaucracy, which is in a way limiting or creating obstacles to the free circulation of people and goods. The only way to solve this issue, because tracking and road is going to be an issue also in the next years, because there is a scarcity of drivers and the cost of transporting the goods by a truck can only increase and not decrease. It's by shifting the supply chain to the railway, reducing the transit time, by then addressing the important issue of the environment and the important issue of making the goods of the European markets more competitive. So gaining this competitive advantage that we had time ago that we have lost because of the international competition. I think we can still regain a role. We can help together in shifting a substantial part of the supply chain from the North European range ports to the Southern European range port. And in this, Thessaloniki Port Authority is going to play a pivotal role because we are privatized. And so we have a dynamic and commercial and economic approach to the problematic of the cargo. And we are committed in investing in infrastructure, both in terms of ports as well as in terms of railway. The Bulgarian penetration is just the first step of our strategy that will see us involved more and more in the rest of the Balkan countries. Because especially in this period of COVID, the importance of having an efficient supply chain is even more remarkable than in the past.
I have only one question. In the past, we had type of ships operating in the Black Sea, that could enter the Danube and move the goods from, I don't know, let's say Constanza, for instance, to the Northern Sea. Is there within the plan to connect Thessaloniki port to that kind of transportation?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we are committed in connecting Thessaloniki to the wider range of the pan-European corridor that along Bulgaria, Romania, and we hope soon to connect also Serbia, which is in our plans, because we really think that the natural one of the natural gateways for Serbia, that is right now a landlocked country from an ocean, from a sea point of view, it is Thessaloniki. Thessaloniki is 1 day away from southern Serbia, is 1.5 days away from Belgrade. So why not making the possibility of Thessaloniki serving such an important market as it is Serbia, which is a market that nowadays it's accountable for more than 100,000 TEUs. And we are certain, because the economical statistics are showing that the economy of Serbia can only improve, can only develop. But in order to support this development, to increment this development, you need an efficient connectivity network, which is to say better transit times, better costs in terms of being cheaper, and more sustainable from an environmental point of view. Yes, the first steps of our strategy are to connect Bulgaria, as we are doing, as we are delivering, Serbia, Romania, North Macedonia, of course, and then Central up to North Europe. Because thanks to the pan-European corridors, in 2 days we can be in Austria. In 2.5 days, in 3 days, we can be in South Germany. So, and all the economies of all the countries being connected along this important network, they can only benefit from such an efficient network that we are committed in pursuing along the strategic objectives of the European community and of the countries which are also developing, because also Serbia is developing quite fast along this concept of connectivity. We believe that this is going to be the key of success for the economies of these countries in the next year. So yes, Thessaloniki as a gateway, not only for the Balkans, but for the rest of Central Europe, is going to play a role. We want to be in support of the economies. Allow me to remember that between Thessaloniki and Serbia, there is a long-lasting relationship, economical and social relationships that
and historical,
countries, and historical.
Zeytin Lake is the part of Thessaloniki now.
Yes, absolutely. And we want to revive these stronger ties. This September, our Ministry of Tourism in Greece has announced the conclusion of an important touristic agreement with your government. And I think that we should pursue along these lines, because definitely for Serbia and the possibility for Thessaloniki to represent for Serbia the logical and natural gateway can only be creating additional development, sustainable development for the Serbian economy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pankin, do you find interest in financing such connectivity problems in this time?
You see, of course, this type of project, maritime connection, is very interesting. And we are looking several now proposals, some ferry trip between Turkey, Bulgaria, Turkey, Romania. Again, I could agree with Franco that connectivity between Thessaloniki and Varna and possible Serbia, Belgrade will be very interesting to finance this type of project. But I would like maybe to stress one other advantage for bank to finance this project, because you see now one of biggest challenge for international financial institutions, this is a climate issue, climate change, and we are trying to put target as a CO2 reduction as a kind of our target for our portfolio. And that's why to have in our portfolio project like in shipping industry that will substantially reduce emission if I go from trucks to shipping or to railway, this type of project could be looked as a climate friendly project and could succeed could lead to this emission reduction and kind of climate change goal. And for development institution, this is very important activity now. That's why I'm very supportive for this type of project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ellis. What do you think is your focus in the future, especially after the COVID crisis, going to be on the infrastructure projects, or what do you think can help the region enter the European trends faster than they're doing so far?
Well, I think like the other speakers, we see the green agenda as something extremely important for the region. Now that the EU has talked about this EU Green Deal, that's going to have significant implications for clean energy, for the transport sector, and for many other sectors. And it's not just a question of green, it's also a question of trade, because it's likely that the European Union eventually will implement carbon border taxes on all countries that are not producing things in the same green way as the European Union. So that's something that countries have to think about. And particularly on connectivity, it's going to be a tough job because, as we're talking, we want to see growing economies, and with growing economies, we normally see increasing demand for transport. And at the moment, most of that transport is done by diesel-based vehicles, whether it be by road or by train. And that's if demand goes up, then CO2 emissions also go up. So we really have to think about a different way. We really have to promote this modal shift to the railways, to the waterways. That's absolutely key. But more than that, we also need to think about linkages with our energy colleagues and e-mobility. Serbia has potential lithium deposits, so potentially there's a big business there in terms of this new way of transport in the future. So these are going to be the challenges going forward, but also potentially interesting opportunities.
Batteries to the future, the future with batteries. I would like to thank you very much on your very interesting, very professional approach to this panel. If you have anything to conclude on, please do it within a minute. We can start by Mr. Pankin, after which I'm going to conclude today's session. Mr. Pankin, 1 minute for the conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have, I think, very lovely session. And again, as a conclusion, my feeling, what I would like to say, so our target will be next year, for the next maybe 2-3 years, to spend another 700 million euro on infrastructure project in our region. So this will be in our screen as a priority. And secondly, we have initiative for next year to start our own technical assistance fund and to spend part of our profit in order to establish this type of fund to help municipal authority, regional authority to create a new project and to start this type of activity. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cupolo.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank you for having given us the opportunity to introduce our mission, our vision, and our commitment in serving the market of the Balkans and primarily Serbia as being the natural gateway as a Thessaloniki Port Authority of this market. We are committed in investing 263 million to give the possibility to and the contribution to a sustainable development of the economies. Sustainable development can only come through shifting from truck to rail and to motorways of sea. This is clear. We are committed in delivering this, in creating innovative product, in investing in innovation and digitalization of the processes, because this is an important element in order to again improve the competitiveness of the cargo and of the exporters and importers located in Balkans and in Central Europe. And we will definitely be willing to establish stronger ties with the Balkans, with Serbia in the first place in the months to come, resurrecting this important role that Thessaloniki Port Authority has always had towards and at the service of the Serbian economy. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for joining us. And Mr. Ellis.
I would just like to thank the organisers of the forum for an excellent job again, and for you for chairing a very interactive session. It was very nice to have all of these questions going backwards and forwards. As far as the World Bank is concerned, our focus going forward will be supporting the countries of the region with a green, resilient recovery, helping them build back better, and with a real focus on, the jobs and growth of the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank to my speakers and to our viewers. And I would like to call you to stay tuned and tomorrow for the second day of the 20th Belgrade Economical Forum. And I would finish today's panel with positive thoughts, and I hope that the COVID crisis is soon to be finished, and that our connectivity issues are going to stay in the past. We're going to be much more connected and stay connected. Thank you very much, and good night.